Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayom Vishnupad Padamahamsa Parivrajagacharya Shodhara Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Shodhara Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Saranta Saraswati Goswami Mahārāja Prabhupada Ki Jai Nandakoti Vaiṣṇava Vrinda Ki Jai ISKCON Foundacharya BBT Foundacharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Samveda Bhakti Ki Jai Go Premanandi All glories to the assembled devotees All glories assembled devotees All glories assembled devotees All glories Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga Namo Vishnu Krishna Vastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta So it's text 71 on the board, right? Begins with Brahmans. Okay, we got it. I'm at the right temple. Just like yogis, they can take a bath at the same time in the four dhams. I wonder if in due course of time, when devotees become full of mystic powers, they can give Bhagavatam class simultaneously in different places. You've had that experience? On the giving end or receiving end? Should we stop class and have him explain what he just said, or just go on?
I'll talk about it in my next class.
No wonder why he does. He's out there right now.
Well, through the technology, you could expand the many screens at one time.
I guess that's true, right? If you're giving class on Zoom, you're appearing in multiple locations. To hell with these mystic yogis. Like that. They don't know what they're doing. It's not the same, though.
Submarine.
Okay, so this is the text. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Brahmans Tad Gacha Badram Te Nabaga Tanayam Nripam Kshamapaya Mahabhagam Tata Shantir Bhavishyati. Brahmam stad gacha badram te nabaga tanayam nripam kshamapaya mahabhagam tata shantir bhavishyati. Brahmam stad gacha badram te nabaga tanayam nripam kshamapaya mahabhagam tata shantir bhavishyati. Brahmam stad gacha badram te nabaga tanayam nripam Shamapaya Mahabhagam Tata Shantir Bhavishyati. Anyone like to chant? Badram stad gacha badram te Shantir Bhavishyati. Vam Tadnya Jaganjam Te Nahabhaga Tanayam Nripa Shamapaya Mahabhagam Tata Shantir Bhavishyati. Anyone else? Bhabaram stad gacha badram te Nabhaga tanayam nritam Kshamapaya mahabhagam Tata Shantir Bhavishyati. Online.
Brahmam Stadgacha Bhadram Te
Bhadram Stad Gacha Bhadram Te.
Navagatanayam Nripam
Nabhagatanayam Nripam.
Shamapaya Mahabhagam
Shamapaya Mahabhagam.
Shantir Bhavishyati.
Tata Shantir Bhavishyati. Brahman, O Brahmana, Tat, therefore, Gacha, you go. Bhadram, all auspiciousness. Te, unto you. Nabhaga, Tanayam, to the son of Mahārāja Nabhaga. Nripam, the king Ambarīṣa. Kshamapaya, just try to pacify him. Mahabhagam, a great personality, a pure devotee. Tata, thereafter. Shanti, peace. Bhavishyati, there will be. O best of the Brahmanas, you should therefore go immediately to King Ambarīṣa, the son of Mahārāja Nabhaga. I wish you all good fortune. If you can satisfy Mahārāja Ambarīṣa, then there will be peace for you. In this regard, Madhav Muni quotes from the Guru Purana. Do you want me to read all the Sanskrit or just go to the English?
Fast. Okay,
you want to read it fast?
Brahmadi Bhakti Kotyang Shadangsho Naivam Ambarīṣake Naivanyasya Chakrasyapi Tatapi Hadarishwaraha Tatkali Kupashetyatva Tesham Yashasa Adarad Brahmadayast Tatkirtim Vyanjayama Suruttamam Mohanaya Cha Daityanam Brahmade Nindanaya Cha Anyatam Cha Swayam Viṣṇu Brahmadyascha Nirashisaha Manushuttamat Pattacha Tesham Bhaktyari Bhigunai Brahmade Vishvadhinatva Gapanaya Kevalam Durvāsascha Swayam Rudras Tatapyanayam Nuktavan Yasyap Anugahataya Darpanashartamevacha.
The lesson to be derived from this narration concerning Mahārāja Ambarīṣa and Durvāsā Muni is that all the demigods, including Lord Brahmā and Lord Śiva, are under the control of Lord Viṣṇu. Therefore, when a Vaiṣṇava is offended, the offender is punished by Viṣṇu, the Supreme Lord. No one can protect such a person, even Lord Brahmā or Lord Śiva. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 9th canto, 4th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Ambarīṣa Mahārāja offended by Durvāsā Muni. Om Agyantivarandasya Garanjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Dena Taismai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Svaha Padandikam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Vanchakaupatarubhascha, Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha, Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. So by your good wishes and ardent prayers, I'll try to say a few words that are meaningful. I'm going to jump around on a bunch of different topics here. But the main theme of today's class is how to offend devotees. Does anyone need any help in that department? I wouldn't feel pretty, they got it down already? Yeah, devotees are very expert at offending others. Hare Krishna. So, in an earlier verse, it's described in the verse and in the purport that Durvāsā Muni's problem was he didn't understand Ambarīṣa Mahārāja's position. He didn't understand. And the benefit, in fact, the word that, I think it's in the previous verse, this word gentle. Is that in the previous verse? Lord Viṣṇu was explaining that because if one's not gentle, and the word for that is vinaya. What is that? Vidya vinaya sampane. Brahmani Vaiṣṇava. Okay, but the point is that a Brahmin is vidya, very learned, but vinaya, also very, very gentle. And if you don't, Lord Viṣṇu is making the point, if you don't have that quality of being gentle, then the two things he mentioned was learning and austerity. They can actually cause all kinds of problems. Your gentleness or humility is a regulator on these things. In other words, what's the opposite of being gentle? Aggressive, proud. That's what actually is referring to, pride. It just spoils everything. And that's what happened to Mahārāja, to Durvāsā Muni, because of his pride in thinking himself to be very, very advanced and exalted, a great mystic. And actually he is a great mystic, still around. But then these qualities of austerity and learning, instead of being helpful to him and others, create all kinds of problems. So he didn't recognize Ambarīṣa Mahārāja for who he was, that he's a great, great devotee of the Lord. And that was the key, or the source of all of the problems in this particular, not pastime, but history. And in reference to Vaiṣṇava, because of that, he committed all kinds of offenses. So in Bhakti True Mahārāja's class at the VIHE on Vaishnavas and Vaishnava etiquette and so on, there's a page or two in the book on Vaishnava Aparad. The very first page is just glorifying the devotees, because the problem with Ambarīṣa, the problem with Durvāsā Muni, he didn't understand how glorious devotees are, and specifically Ambarīṣa Mahārāja. And if we understand how glorious devotees are, then the tendency to criticize them or offend them will be lessened, like that, unless we're just out of control. Did you ever get out of control? Should I ask that in front of your brother? Did he ever get out of control? Maybe you two never got out of control. Lucky parents. Huh? They're in control. Okay, not out of control. So let me read this. Just a few quotes here about devotees. And while I'm reading this, we can look around the room and just try to appreciate the devotees. So it says, in Krishna consciousness, every devotee is so important because all of the activities of a devotee of Lord Krishna is beneficial to all living entities. This is to Shivananda, our God brother. Prabhupada wrote that to Shivananda. So if you think about it, Vaishnavas are very important because whatever they do is for the benefit of everyone. That's very rare that someone is actually just concerned about the welfare of others. So very special people. Is that a confirmation? Okay, Jai. Very good. Okay, here we go. And these are all quotes from the Hari Bhakti Vilas. Devotees of Hari are very rare in the age of Kali. How many people in the city of San Diego? Do you know? The county is how many? 3 million. Yeah, a little over 3 million. How many devotees in this room? How many devotees in San Diego? They're very, very rare. Very, very rare. The position of the devotee is more elevated than the position of Lord Brahmā and Lord Rudra. Now, don't let that go to your heads, Prabhus. Okay. But the presence of here's two. The presence of a devotee at the time of death elevates even the killer of a brahmana to the spiritual sky. And many people know this. That's what they always call the temple and ask, can someone come? Family members dying. They know if a devotee's there chanting, it's just erases everything. So special. 3, if a dog eater becomes a Vaishnava, then he becomes more elevated than a brahmana. And if a sannyasi is devoid of devotion to Viṣṇu, then he is considered to be more degraded than a dog eater. 4, even at the time of total annihilation, the devotees of Viṣṇu do not fall down. That's why Sri Hari is known everywhere as infallible, all-pervasive, and inexhaustible. Therefore, there is no need to fear a devotee. A devotee never inflicts pain to anyone. 5. Those who worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Hari, are the best of all the people, and no one is better than them in the three worlds. 6. Those sinless, magnanimous Vaishnavas purify the entire creation. Therefore, they're even better than the places of pilgrimage. 7. Those who are my devotees are not actually my devotees. Those who are the devotees of my devotees are the real devotees. And 8. My devotees, who are surrendered unto me and free from attachment and disgust, envy and pride, sing my glory all the time. They never cause any harm to anyone. They're always engaged in worshiping my devotees and eager to hear about me. They are the ones who always carry me in their hearts. So these are the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They're very, very rare, great personalities at any stage in their Krishna consciousness. You know the example about the mango? You have a ripe mango and you have a green mango. Now just give it a little time, what happens to that green mango? Unless Prema Priya grabs it and turns it into green mango chutney, just give us, right? It'll become a ripe mango. Either way, it's good. But if it just give it some time and it ripens. But it's a mango. You can't say it's not a mango. It's a mango. So just give it some time. So to aspire to revive one's Krishna consciousness is quite noble and appropriate and ecstatic. So be very, very conscientious of who were in the association of devotees and so on. So that's Ambarīṣa's mistake. He couldn't understand who Ambarīṣa was because of his pride. It blinds everything. Pride blinds everything. And it mentioned that this last verse about the devotees, Krishna saying here, they're always in my heart. And that was brought up in a previous verse also. That when, because the Hridayam, that Krishna is always in the heart of the devotee, devotee is always in Krishna's heart. So when you offend a devotee, you're actually hurting, when you hurt a devotee, you're hurting Krishna's heart. That's actually what's going on. That's a very profound realization, but that's what Krishna is saying. Because the devotees are in my heart, when you offend a devotee, you're actually hurting Krishna's heart. And that's why Krishna gets really upset with aparadhis. In the case here, he immediately sent his Sudarshan Chakra and chased Durvāsā Muni all over the universe. And he was on the road for how long? You were on the road for how long? 2.5 months. He was on for 1 year. He was traveling. And you didn't have a Sudarshan Chakra after you, did you? No. He did. It was just getting closer and closer. And he would stop. He spoke to Lord Brahmā. He spoke to Lord Śiva. Went to Lord Viṣṇu's abode. Took him 1 whole year. And as we'll be reading in the next chapter, when he returned after 1 year, Ambarīṣa was still standing. Actually, he was fasting on water for 1 year, just waiting for him to come back so he could apologize and make up. Like that, for any inconvenience he could cause him. Imagine you have a guest come to your house, and the next thing you know, Sudarshan Chakra is chasing the guest out the front door, and what happened? So it's not exactly hospitality, but even though he did nothing, he did nothing himself to create this situation. He's completely innocent, but still, as a devotee, he's feeling that. Excuse me, my legs here. He's feeling that. It's my fault. This whole thing's my fault. Like that. And I'm very, very sorry. So, and another thing that's brought up earlier is that, you know, they have that saying, when you point one finger at someone, how many fingers are pointing at you? 3. So if I say, you're a nonsense. 3 of them are pointing, so 3 times I'm a nonsense. So what's brought up here in this pastime, and some different pastimes we can talk about, is we see that when someone offends someone else, the person who's offending is actually the person who gets hurt. That's the person who actually gets hurt. And here, look what happened. Another big example would be Hiranyakashipu, right? Hiranyakashipu, he was offending Prahlāda Mahārāja, and look what happened to him. So, of course, there's two things. This big reactions like this, where you're being chased by Sudarshan, or the Lord himself personally has to come and take care of things. But even when you speak ill of another person or criticize them, it's often seen that those qualities which you are accusing the other person of having, you have them yourself. Otherwise, how could you criticize the other person if you never knew? So generally it's seen that if we criticize someone, take a look at our own self immediately and say, my goodness, I've got I got the same problems. Prabhu, you never show up on time. Well, look at your own life. Maybe you don't show up on time all the time either, right? So, was it Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj said, and it's a very good thing, we should have a t-shirt or at least a big banner wherever we put it. He would say, he's told his disciples that look within, amend thyself, do not pry into the faults of others. So in other words, what's the use? And the point is, unless it's your service, but we should be so busy dealing with our own shortcomings that we really don't have time for anyone else's. Sorry, Prabhu, I don't have time to offend you today. I got my own problems. Right? I just don't have the time to find fault with you because I'm so busy trying to purify my own heart. So please forgive me for not offending you today. Okay? So that's the mood, is that we're so busy working on ourselves, we don't really have time to find fault in others. And another example would be Ramachandra Puri, that he was so expert at finding faults in others, and but it all came back on him. No one wanted anything to do with him. He was more or less, devotees ostracized him from their society, and they just didn't want him around. He was such a nasty person, nasty devotee. So, and the point is also that one of the most dangerous result of Vaiṣṇava aparādha, you know what that is? Yes, yeah. One loses one's Krishna consciousness. Now, Ramachandra Puri pastime is a perfect example of that. Offending his spiritual master and the devotees, he became a personalist and just a criticizer, and just everything gets lost. And another explanation of that is that what causes Vaiṣṇava aparādha is association with materialistic people. That's one of the causes, because in their association you minimize devotees. And then all kinds of things start happening, and one loses one's Krishna consciousness, and that's a horrible thing to happen. Now, in this description in this class, it's very interesting. It says that, oh my goodness. Okay, you want to hear what happens when you offend a devotee? When one blasphemies a Vaishnava, he loses his religiosity, wealth, fame, and children. If one beats a Vaishnava, blasphemies a Vaishnava, shows disrespect to a Vaishnava, gets angry upon a Vaishnava, or does not express joy in seeing a Vaishnava, he goes to hell. Yes, goes to hell. Like that. Now, what I want to bring up here, it's Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, if you want to find fault with devotees, there's 4 ways you find fault with devotees. Did you know that? There's 4 ways. The first one is you can find fault with a Vaishnava for his parent low birth. Now, we don't really have that in America, right? So much, because we don't have a caste system and so on. But in India, and in our line, who's the number one example of that? Haridas Thakur. Right? Haridas Thakur. So one thinks, well, actually we have it in the sense that when you go to India, there are the Brahminical class, the Smarta Brahmins are very, sometimes, what do they call it? Look down their nose. What is that saying? Look down your nose. Yeah, at us because of white skin, Mlechas, Yavanas. We really couldn't be Vaishnavas. We really can't, because we have a low birth. There's no way in the world we could actually be Brahmins or Vaishnavas, sannyasis, and they're very, very, very critical. There's that one pastime, I don't know who the devotees were, but they were taking darshan in Vrindavan. Was it in Vrindavan? And the Bajari told them, oh, this is very, very nice. He said, in your next life, maybe you'll take birth, as a devotee. And they told Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, you should have told him in his next birth, he's very good, he'll take birth in ISKCON. But saying, oh, this life is more or less, it's no value because you're born in a Malecha and Yavana family, and therefore you're low class. So that's one way people criticize Vaishnavas. Just like here, Ambarīṣa was a king, and Durvāsā was a big mystic yogi. So he's thinking he's just a king, a kshatriya, pound, shilling, pence person. What is he? Why is people paying him respect? That's what he was thinking. He was so respected by everyone. Why is that? They're all saying he's so spiritual, and he's just a king. So, not even a Brahmin. Oh, I'm a Brahmin, yes. Let me break my thread. Next one is to blaspheme him for his previous faults. Do you know what Sankarshan used to do before he moved into the temple? Let me tell you what Sankarshan used to do before he moved into the temple, where he worked in Imperial Beach. Let me tell you all about that. I'm not telling anyone. But previous faults. Did anyone here have any previous faults before they moved into the temple, took up Krishna consciousness? Okay. The next one is to blaspheme a devotee for his accidental fault. It's always just accident, but you want to accuse, make some like that. And the last one is to blaspheme him for his faults that are almost rectified. In other words, we're in the shower, we're trying to get clean, and you want to bring that up, that even though we're in the process, he doesn't chant his rounds so nicely. He falls asleep during japa, this or that or whatever. He yawns during class, like that, things like that. Now, the point is, these are 4 ways you can offend devotees, but the point Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur makes is never do this. Don't ever do these things. Don't ever find fault with a Vaishnava because of his low birth, if he has a low birth. Don't ever find fault with a devotee never bring up previous faults. Don't ever bring up an accidental fault. And don't blaspheme a devotee or find fault with a devotee for faults that are almost rectified. In other words, these aren't good enough reasons. But wait a second. He wasn't born in a Brahmin family. Wait a second. You know what he did before he was a devotee? Wait a second. You know what she did the other day? It was an accidental fault, but it was really bad. He shouldn't have done it. So the point is, don't do this. On these 4 counts, never go there. Just don't do it. Like that. And it says, what happens if you commit? This is what Ambarīṣa Mahārāja is now, and this Durvāsā Muni is now being told to do. It comes up in this other verse here from the Hari Bhakti Vilas. If by chance one commits Vaiṣṇava aparad, then he must beg forgiveness from the Vaishnava very earnestly by holding their feet. A Vaishnava is very merciful, so he will immediately embrace him and forgive him for all his offenses. That's from the Harinam Chintamani. So that's the recommendation. If by chance you commit Vaishnava aparad, you're supposed to beg forgiveness from the devotee. You could even hold their feet. And if you feel really bad, you know what you can do? You can cry. Wash their feet with your tears. And just keep begging and begging until they say, okay, I forgive you, I forgive you. So, that's good advice, right? Now, one thing about our culture, Vaishnava culture and the etiquette, you see how fine it is, how refined it is. So refined. And I remember asking, I was at one Mahārāja in Mayapur, I was saying, if you look at the Vedic scriptures, there's so much detail given. They go on and on and on. The description of so much detail and whatever it might be. Like Shanka, analysis of this material world or different descriptions and so on. I said, why is that? Because it just goes on and on and on and on. He said it's a symptom of a very advanced culture that you catch everything. You notice everything. Whereas the lower you go on the rung of culture, things become very, very dull and gross, and people miss it all. They just miss everything. You know, there's no refinement. That's a sign of culture, is refinement. I remember many years ago, Mahārāja, he's a musician. Did you know Mahārāja's a musician? Plays bass guitar and a few different instruments and so on. He's a good musician. And he was saying that today there's no music. It's just sound, you know? Isn't it? Sometimes you hear these cars go by and they're playing something really loud. It's just like, it sounds like a car crash or something. It's the music. It's just not very refined, whereas even 50 years ago or 100 years ago in previous times, different cultures, the music is very, very, very refined. You know, so many nuances. In fact, I was just reading the other day in one book on chanting, about kirtan, about we shouldn't think our voice is that beautiful that we can impress Krishna. Because in the spiritual world, all the residents, especially the gopis, they have such beautiful voices. And on top of that, there's 3,300 different ragas, different kind of melodies, 3,000 or more. Can you imagine, John, remember you get all of those? And so how refined the music and the singing is there, and we think we got a good voice. We can keep a good beat on the madanga or something like that, or we can really make our kartals spark like that. They used to say that. Did you ever see that? They used to say that about Mahārāja, because he came to Boston and became our GBC for a little while back in the 70s. And at that time, Prabhupada had he called him the Emperor of Kirtan. And we were told in Australia, when he led Kirtan, he actually shot sparks off his kartals. But we never saw that in Boston, so maybe it wasn't true, but apparently he played kartals very nicely. Wonderful devotee. So even if we can shoot sparks off our kartals during kirtan, still we're no comparison to the residents of the spiritual world, so we got nothing to be that proud of. So many wonderful devotees. And it's so the etiquette is very, very refined, little things, but that's a sign of culture. You know, and to disregard all that, just make everything gray or dull, or it's not that important. Everything's very, very important, and that's a sign of a very advanced culture that you take these things into consideration. And just like sometimes when I do a havan ceremony, I show the people that, you know, they're putting things into the fire, right? The grains in the fire with swaha. It's a little bit of etiquette, but when you're going to take something and put into the fire, it actually goes off the top of your hand. Because when you're giving something, whether flower petals or the grains to someone superior, a gift, it's always like this. When you go like this, it means you're giving a charity to someone lesser than you. It's a little turn of the hand, but it's a subtle thing, and it means a lot. Right? So when you give something to someone superior, your hand is up, and when you're giving someone inferior, your hand is down, like this. Cherry, little subtlety, and all these things make a big difference. So how we relate to each other, and being very, very careful, being very respectful, and always being this vinaya, very, very gentle. You know, I mean, Arjuna was very, very gentle on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. How was that? No. He was completely surrendered to Krishna. That's the perfection of Vinaya. Very, very. He's a warrior, but so the ultimate point is being a surrendered soul to Krishna in all circumstances. So even his fighting, he was Vinaya. He was very, very gentle because everything was for the pleasure of the Lord. So whatever our service may be, we need to learn how to become Vinaya, which is a sign of humility. And always, the beginning of the class, we read some descriptions of how wonderful devotees are. Always happy to glorify the devotees, render service to devotees, and this is all proper culture. And not just devotees. One offers respects to elders. Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita the austerities of the body. How does that verse begin? Guru Pragya? Is that how it begins? Guru Pragya, something. In other words, with one's body, one offers respects to the parents, spiritual master, the Brahmins, superiors like the mother and father, like that. That's the very first austerity of the body. There's all these different austerities. These are all signs of a wonderful culture. And we'll end here. Lord Viṣṇu told Durvāsā Muni, if you do this, what happens? What happens? Let me see if I can bring this up. Yeah, here it is. Here's the Sanskrit. Tata shantir bhavishyati. You'll be very peaceful. Everyone will be very, very peaceful. Shanti bhavishyati. Everything becomes very, very peaceful if the proper etiquette between people and devotees is observed. And as soon as you go off of that, then everything becomes disturbed. So we can end here. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Any questions or comments on this hot topic? Are there, or should we end? You have something to say? Add to it?
That one is bothered or annoyed or frustrated by the faults of others. What does that say about a person, a devotee? Does that say that they don't have the proper focus or the proper attention on their own issues? Because like you're saying, if you're so busy with your own problems, you don't really have time to be focusing on others. Is that like Maya? Is that like illusion, testing or influencing a person? Because sometimes we think of Maya like a distracting energy. I don't know, so maybe you could comment on that.
Well, there's a few different aspects of that answer. In other words, who the person is, what their service is, who the devotees are they're talking about, and so on. The general principle I wanted to bring up is that not that we're so self-absorbed we don't have time to notice what's going on in other devotees' lives. It's not that. But the propensity to find unnecessary faults and criticize, that shouldn't arise in a person's heart because they're very, very busy dealing with their own shortcomings and so on. So they don't have time for petty problem, looking for problem, criticizing others and so on. They feel very, very humble, and they're just very busy dealing with their own impurities and so on. So they actually just don't notice. They don't notice in general. Now, that doesn't mean you don't notice what's going on. If someone is doing something they shouldn't be doing, you notice it. And then there's a proper etiquette, how to deal with things like that. Whether it's you're the other person who's supposed to bring it up to that devotee, or you bring it up to someone else who's their mentor or guide or best friend or something like that. So there's some different, we brought this up, it's brought up over and over again. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, that one disciple who loved to criticize other devotees. He just loved to do it. So finally came to his attention. He called him in the room. He said, why do you spend so much time criticizing the other devotees? He said, it's not even your service. He said, it's my service as the guru. It's a thankless task. No one likes to, no Vaiṣṇava likes to find the faults in others, but I have to because I'm the spiritual master. But you're not the spiritual master, so why do you spend all this time criticizing others? It's not even your service. You shouldn't have to do. You shouldn't do this. Just, That's the point. It's not your business to find fault in others. And just like Ramachandra Puri made it his business not only to find fault in others, but to create a situation where that he could find fault. He actually made them. It's like tripping someone and say, hey, why'd you fall? It's like, because you just tripped me. So he would do that. He'd make them overeat, then criticize them for overeating. He would actually create the situation in which he could find fault. That's pretty bad. So I hope that answers your question. We're not blind. We're not blind. But we don't see the faults in others in the 4 categories you read about as opportunities to waste our time finding fault. Because usually you find fault with others to make yourself look better. Right? It's easier, instead of elevating yourself, to find fault with others, and then you feel you're elevated. Like that. So that's one reason criticism is there. Oh, okay. You have a question?
I was just wondering on this part of, I guess, devotees, I guess out of Vaishnava etiquette, they don't defend themselves. Like Srila Prabhupada mentions it in the first canto when Mahārāja gets cursed, is that devotees are so forbearing, even when defamed, cursed, they still don't defend themselves. But when to defend? Is it when another devotee is getting,
Yes, that's a very good point. When to defend ourselves. Prabhupada said devotee himself is Trinadapi Sunichena Toro, more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige and ready to offer respects to others. But when another devotee of the Supreme Lord is offended, one becomes just like fire. Just like fire. Just reading this, where was it? Probably India. There was some engagement. There's some engagement, and they invited Srila Prabhupada, and the only other guest was a big Mayavadi speaker, okay? So, and they had one seat, and Prabhupada came a little bit early, and that was for that big Mayavadi guru, but the devotee said, Prabhupada, just sit on it. So Prabhupada just went and sat on it. And the sponsors of the thing were like, what to do? And then the Mayavadi sannyasi kind of walked in. He just saw Prabhupada sitting there, and he was respectful. He just sat on a little cushion, right? And then Prabhupada spoke. They let Prabhupada speak for some time. And of course, what did he speak about? What was wrong with being a Mayavadi? And then he didn't get off the seat. He stayed there. And then the Mayavadi sannyasi stood up and he spoke. And he kept speaking, and Prabhupada was just chanting on his beads. And then Ambarīṣa was telling the story. And then Ambarīṣa and the boys they grabbed their japa beads too, because that's what Prabhupada was doing. And then at a certain time, Prabhupada turned to Ambarīṣa and said, "Stop him," because it was all in Hindi. They said they couldn't understand what the man was saying, but Prabhupada turned to Ambarīṣa and said, "Stop him." And Ambarīṣa's a new devotee. What does it mean? He's a big guru, and this, stop him, what to do? Then Prabhupada said, have kirtan. And the voice just broke out in a kirtan. And then that was it. And then later on, at Prabhupada's room, they brought it up, and Prabhupada said, yes, he was saying this, but at a certain point, I couldn't take it anymore. I just could not take, he was just, he was criticizing Krishna, and I couldn't take it anymore. So he just broke into a kirtan. Like that. So, sometimes things like that happen. When the devotee or the Lord are criticized, one has to come to their defense. Otherwise, that's an offense. But for oneself, it's okay. Ambarīṣa in his book on japa, he makes a good point. One meditation is this. I'll put it this way. I was thinking about it. I can invite everyone in this room for the next 10 minutes. Actually, I pass out papers to everyone. Take some time. Pass out papers, okay? And ask you to, on that paper, write 1 through, let's keep it simple, 1 through 10, okay? And I want each of you, actually 1 through 20, write 20 different criticisms you have of me, okay? Now, I want you to do that. But the thing is, however much that adds up to, because of the number of problems I have or impurity I have in my heart, it's not even a dent. So it doesn't faze me at all. He said, we have a mountain, that was it Chetodarbana Marjanam Bhavamaha. We have this dust in our heart. And he said, if you look inside, it's actually the size of a mountain. It's not like a little dust, it's like a mountain of dust. So what's a little, you think, oh, I brought up 10 faults you have. Well, I just opened up a little bit, I got about 1 million. So you only saw 10, I see 1 million in my own heart. So, thank you. But I already know there's about 1 million in there, so that 10 it's nice, but it doesn't faze me because I'm already aware of the whole mountain I have in my heart. So, yeah, I can say this and that, collect all the papers, go home, read it. Oh, they have no idea how much is in my heart, how much dust is in my heart. They have no idea. I'm very expert at hiding it all. But the devotee is aware of his own shortcomings, so it doesn't bother him. But when someone offends another devotee of the Lord, one becomes very active. like that. So we can end here. Unless Dravida Prabhu or you have more, what's the breakfast schedule with Ananda Vrindavan? Is it all ready? Should we stop or are we going way over time? Go, Dravida Prabhu.
I just wanted to point out, you more or less covered it, but what really stood out with this whole confrontation between Durvāsā and Ambarīṣa was this whole thing of, I'm a Brahmin and you're a Kshatriya. I think that was Durvāsa's main what do you call it? Thought it was a justification for going after him. He's just a Kshatriya, and he's got all this honor. So I'm going to arrange things in such a way that he'll make an offense against me, and then I'll annihilate him. I'll burn him to death. I mean, it's completely out of crazy. But that's what his plan was. And Ambarīṣa just showed that he's so advanced by just being cool about the whole thing. He didn't flinch when this big kritya. It says in the dictionary there's a female demon. Prabhupada doesn't bother with the demonists, I'd say what's female about just a big ball of fire? I mean what anyway. So because the same word is used, if you recall, when Krishna killed Paundraka. And he had the king of Kashi as an ally, and he decapitated Kashi, threw his head into the whole thing, and they all freaked out, and they created they engaged a priest, and I always remember that pastime because I played that priest in the play in Brooklyn. Om Namo Dakshinagni, Om Namo Dakshinagni, and then out comes Jagannath Sutta just as it runs into the audience, and everyone freaks out. Anyway, you can't forget that. But it was the same word, kritya. This female demon is completely composed of fire. Just his whole business is to burn. So again, the chakra annihilated, and then burned up the whole Kashi city. But the point I was going to make is that this comes up again and again, and it's endemic in India now. The caste system is And as you pointed out at the beginning, devotees, trying to get into the Jagannath temple, but no, you're not the right color. I always laugh because Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj got in. He was disguised, he's dressed as a Hindu and he got the right color, so he walks in. But the point is, it's so artificial, just according to birth, according to the birth, and you judge someone, and that was really what Ambarīṣa was doing, what Durvāsā was doing, And he engineered the whole thing, and then he thought that, but the reaction was just so overblown. It was just crazy, So he got a good lesson. And in the meanwhile, we got so many beautiful verses by Krishna. Sadhavo vadiyam mayam sadhanam vadiyam tatam. The sadhus are in my heart. They're in my heart. I don't know anyone but them, and they don't know anyone but me. And now you go and pray to Ambarīṣa, and of course he called off the. Great.
So we can end here. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jagannath Swami ki jai.